Here's a small water plant that I found. Now I've taken a small clipping of it. You can see there. And I'm going to put the camera into the microscope. Let's take a look at it. Here is under 4 times. We can distinctly see the cells and the cell walls. Plant cells are usually rectangular. A lot of interesting variation in there. Here's the tip. This is a flat leaf. And then the spot where I cut it with the scissors. And a few air bubbles there. Let's take a look at those air bubbles. I see something interesting. Now at 10 times objective. What's going on with these air bubbles? It almost looks like small air bubbles are coming out of the stem of the plant. Isn't that weird? Now I would hope that what we're seeing are the cells still going through photosynthesis where they produce oxygen. And I have seen this with algae, but that's only in time lapse, where they take a few minutes and speed them up. Then you can see bubbles of oxygen coming from algae. And of course you would see the same with this plant. But I'm not sure that's what's happening here, because it's happening so quickly. Either way, this is very fun to watch. Oh, there's a stalk of algae that went unseen. I never would have noticed that algae if we hadn't zoomed in more. Here I'm looking at a cut part of a leaf. You can see all of those chloroplasts working away with their chlorophyll green. They are producing oxygen bubbles. They are converting the sunlight, or they are using the sunlight rather, to do some chemistry, and that chemistry is making sugar and oxygen. Now oxygen is a gas. It's producing these air bubbles as we're watching it under the microscope. Well, not air bubbles, rather oxygen bubbles. And what I noticed was that with one bubble, it overlapped this filament of algae that you see. And this bubble is acting like a lens, like a small magnifying glass, or rather doing the opposite. You can actually see the algae filament being refracted through this bubble. Right now I'm changing the focal plane, just so that you can see the full effect through the bubble. Now I think that's really wonderful, because it's the principle of a microscope, what that bubble is doing. So basically we have a microscope under the microscope. So now that we've taken a look at those oxygen bubbles being produced, and now watching them more, I am convinced that that is oxygen being produced in real time by photosynthesis. You can see one coming out there. Normally when you look at a pond sample, these oxygen bubbles are sticking to the algae, and if you shake up a sample of algae, a few bubbles will come up. So let's take a look to the left inside of the plant. You can see those green chloroplasts moving around. Those organelles are the ones that use the sun's energy to do some chemistry. And if we look at the central stem, the long stem in the middle of this leaf, I see a lot of movement. I see that this plant is transporting things from one place to another. Now maybe that's only because I cut the end off it. That might be the only reason that we see these organelles moving. But at least inside of each cell, you can also see chloroplasts moving around. I'm just changing the focal plane now to see every part of them. And if we wait a minute, you can see some movement within the cells too. And we have a hole. Look at that, a nice square hole. That's neat. I'd like to move on to the tip of the leaf. Just keep moving over. And there's the tip of the leaf. Now I'm sure that if we opened up a biology book, they would have much more to say about these special cells on the tip of a leaf. And finally, my favorite, Darkfield, where we have a black background and the lighting comes in mostly from the side. Here's the leaf again at 10 times objective. Let's move all the way over to where I cut it. And those bubbles look great under Darkfield. Let's move in for a closer look. Now see, it's a little more difficult now to see those chloroplasts moving around in their cells, in part because the depth of field is different with Darkfield. In other words, I can't get the whole cell, or at least all the chloroplasts, in focus at once. So it's a little tougher to use Darkfield. There we go. I like this shot the most. I'm going to turn up the light source. So by using Darkfield on this leaf, I've made, without meaning to, a little lava lamp of chloroplasts. You can see them moving around in the plant cells, streaming through. I just wanted to share this because it looks like a nice lava lamp almost. Now my phone's focus is being a little bit jittery. Look at that.